Good morning, everyone. This is Ifeoma Odunlami, immigration attorney from the Odunlami Law Firm in Cedar Knolls, New Jersey. Our law firm represents clients in all 50 states. We're here to assist you with your family-based immigration and your humanitarian-based immigration needs. So today, I have a really great topic. I want to talk about VAWA, but I want to talk about VAWA for men. And so I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on YouTube, and you guys come in. And as soon as you come in, please let me know you're here and say hello, where you're calling from or where you're tuning in from. So today, I want to talk about male VAWA, right? I'm going to talk about, first of all, what VAWA is, and we're going to discuss how it affects men, right? And the reason I'm talking about this is because violence against men is hugely underreported, right? If you guys remember the Johnny Depp court saga a few months ago, this is Johnny Depp, Hollywood superstar, um, who his wife Amber Heard made an allegation of abuse. Not even She didn't even come out to say it. She wrote an article, but clearly it was meant to suggest that he was abusive. And there and then he lost his income. That was it. Everybody was pulling out, nobody wanted to have anything to do with him because on her word alone, they believed that uh, she had abused him. So in the court process, we begin to hear of all the things that Johnny Depp went through. And it was surprising. A lot of people didn't believe it, but the more you listen to it, the more you realize that, you know what, being famous and being rich does not protect you from domestic abuse. Being famous, Johnny Depp he's famous. Everybody knows Johnny Depp. Not a lot of people know Amber Heard, right? But it didn't stop him from being abused. It didn't stop him from losing his income. And so basically, why I mentioned this to show you that there's a segment of uh, um, immigrants who are abused, but it's so underreported because, first of all, being a man, men typically do not want to discuss abuse they're suffering. And mostly because, maybe machismo, or maybe they think nobody's going to believe them or whatever. So today I want to talk about Violence Against Women's Act, which also extends to men, because this is a question I get a lot. Can I file for VAWA? I'm a man. Does that protect me? Of course it does. So VAWA, Violence Against Women's Act, was enacted by Congress in 1994, right, to protect women from domestic violence, right? The protections of VAWA was extended to men in, I think it was 2000, right? And so you see on immigrant men who are married to either U.S. citizen spouses, male or female, um, they're married to U.S. citizen spouses or green card spouses who treat them a certain way, right? And make it impossible for them to get their green cards. So I'm going to talk about the kind of abuse that immigrant men suffer in abusive relationship, right? I think the biggest one that I hear all the time is when the spouse, especially if the spouse is female, she says, I'm going to call the police and nobody's going to believe you. They're going to believe me because number one, I'm a woman, and number two, I'm a citizen, right? And typically, what I hear from my clients is that maybe their spouse calls the police. Let's assume, you know, if she's female, she calls the police. The man leaves and runs away because he's afraid, right? And he's afraid because immigrants don't want to have to deal with the police or any legal authorities because they think that they're going to come and get them and deport them right away. So they, if you talk to them about the police or ICE, they're out of there, right? Hi, Mr. Tusk. Good morning. Nice for you to join us. So this this is something that occurs all the time. Threats to call legal authorities, right? Threats to call ICE, threats to call the police, threats to frame the immigrant and say they did something they didn't do, knowing that they would be afraid of, defending themselves, right? So even in Johnny Depp's case, I think I wrote something where I read where uh, um, Johnny's attorneys played a clip where Amber Heard was heard saying to Johnny, "Tell the world, Johnny, that I, Johnny Depp, am a victim of domestic violence, and see if the jury, see how many people believe or side with you." Yeah. So that's what a lot of undocumented men go through. They are being threatened with calling ICE. They're being threatened with calling the police, and they're afraid that they're going to get in trouble, even though they haven't done anything, right? Sometimes they are the ones being physically abused, right? But if you're in a situation where the police comes and there's a man and a woman, and both of them are claiming domestic violence against each other, a lot of times the woman is believed and the man is seen to be the perpetrator. That happens, right? So I'm not saying that it's women don't get. Of course, we know women get abused. We all know that. But I'm just saying that sometimes there are men out there who are getting abused, and they're not speaking up, right? So today I'm speaking to immigrant men who are in abusive relationships, right? And now, Apple of God's Eye says emotional and physical abuse are common. Yes, yes, yes. Emotional abuse and physical abuse. Emotional abuse, such as threatening to, deport them and they won't have access to their children. Because if you deport them, they probably can't come in for another 10 years. So when a spouse threatens to call ICE on their husband, and they tell them that you're never going to see your children, guess what? That spouse, the husband, does whatever needs to be done to keep the peace because he wants to be in his children's lives, right? Another big part of another abuse that immigrant undocumented men suffer is financial abuse. This is so huge. You have maybe there's a scenario where the U.S. citizen or green card holder spouse has filed for their spouse and he gets a job, and all of a sudden, she's like, "I'm not working anymore. I got your green card. You owe me, right? If I didn't get your green card, how are you gonna be able to work?" And this came out a lot during the stimulus. When the stimulus money would come, the spouse would take it, and this happened in both sexes. They would take it saying, "I'm the reason why you got a job. The reason you qualify for stimulus is because I got your work permit that allowed you to work. Therefore, this stimulus money belongs to me," right? So financial abuse is a huge part of the abuse that men suffer, where their spouses want to they want them to go to work and turn over the money to them. They want them to work more, several jobs so that they don't have to work. They're demanding unreasonably expensive things that they know that their spouse cannot afford. And in exchange, they're basically putting their spouse in a position where, well, if you don't please me, I'm not going to file your papers. If you don't please me, I'm not going to show up for the interview. If you don't please me, I'm going to call ICE. This is abuse, guys. Okay? This is abuse. If this is happening to you, call my office, 973-993-1900. The good news is this: you can self-petition. You do not need to stay in an abusive relationship. You can stay if you want, or you can leave if you want. You can file a divorce, or you don't have to file a divorce. But the important thing is you can self-petition and get your green card without your spouse knowing about it. And the reason they don't know about it is because USCIS cannot tell them that you have filed a VAWA petition. It's confidential, right? So it's important that you know what your rights are so that you don't suffer in your relationship, right? Another way that men are abused in domestic violence settings is when the spouse stops their husband from having contact with their family members. And I see this typically in scenarios where the spouse maybe has children from another relationship, and the U.S. citizen or green card holder spouse feels threatened because of that relationship and says, "You cannot talk to your children because you cannot send money to your children. You cannot have anything to do with your children because there's a baby mama there," or whatever the reason. And if he decides that to go against that, then guess what? That's a problem. She's going to threaten to call ICE. She's not going to show up for the interview. She's going to withdraw her petition, or, just basically make it difficult for him to get his green card, right? So another thing you guys need to know about VAWA is that when you have a VAWA application, if your spouse calls in to make allegations against you, like sometimes they'll call in and lie and say, he married me just for green card. USCIS is not allowed in a VAWA setting to use those statements against you in your VAWA petition. You need to know this, because this empowers you, so that you're not afraid when you think that your spouse is going to call USCIS and say things about you. Okay, if you're filing VAWA, by law they're not allowed to use the statements of your abusive spouse against you. Your VAWA case is going to be reviewed, and decisions will be made based on your submission, right? Okay, so another thing that another form of abuse is belittling and shaming, making fun of the immigrant, maybe the way they talk, their accent, humiliating them in public, humiliating them on social media, just making them feel like they're nothing, And if you think of Johnny Depp, remember the situation where Johnny had told Amber Heard that Dior was interested in a campaign with him, and she said, why would they want to work with you? You have no class or style. You're a fat old man, right? So now this may seem like what USCIS calls marital tension, right? But in VAWA, right, together, this little aggressions, right, together may form a cohesive pattern of abuse that allows you to get your green card, right? And so don't think that it's okay to, for your spouse to call you names and it's not a big deal and you won't win a VAWA case based on that. Chances are there are a lot of other things the spouse is doing that together will show what we call a cohesive pattern of abuse, which could get you your VAWA case. Mr. Tusk, you say, let's see, you always have very useful and new tidbits that I have never heard before. Well done. Well, thank you, Mr. Tusk. So yes, that's what I try to do. I want to bring you guys new information so that you know more, because when you know more, you are able to act accordingly to protect yourself, to protect your family members, and help other people who are looking for green cards. Because ultimately, when you're in the United States, you want to be legal, because when you're legal, you can work, you can travel, you can be with your family. You're not afraid of being deported, because for a lot of people, when you get deported, you can't come back in for a long time. And if you've built a life here, sometimes you have children who are American children. How are you going to see them? You can't be in their lives, So being deported is a fear that immigrants have, right? Undocumented immigrants have, and it's a very valid fear. So it's important that when you're here, that you're looking to get legal status legally, okay? So now what else do undocumented men suffer? Well, apart from isolating him from his family and friends, controlling him, he's not, they go through his phone records, constantly accusing him of cheating as a way of controlling him. He's not allowed to talk to women on social media. He's not allowed to talk to women anywhere, not even allowed to talk to his cousins who are female. I've had cases where the women were putting trackers on their spouses' phone, on their cars, basically just trying to make sure that they know where they are, and if they don't behave or tell them or do what the spouse, an American spouse, wants them to do, then that's they begin to make threats, right? So another way immigrant men suffer abuse is when their spouse jeopardizes their employment. I had a case where this woman was going to her husband's place of work and causing a scene, and the spouse, the undocumented man, got into trouble and basically was told, they let him off the job, right? That's interfering with his employment. That's abuse, right? So if this is happening to you, it's not normal, and it's not, you shouldn't have to deal with this kind of behavior when you can self-petition and get your green card, right? You shouldn't have to wait and hope that your spouse will be in a good mood to file for you, because that's another way, spouses control uh, their their undocumented spouses by promising to file, but never quite filing, knowing that they cannot do anything without getting a work permit. They cannot travel. They're basically dependent on them, right? I had I had a case like that where the U.S. citizen spouse, she was working, she made good money, but she would not file for her spouse because she felt that if she filed for him, he would be able to, get a job, become successful, and would leave her. So basically, as a form of control, she refused to file so that he wouldn't have any choice but to be with her. And so that control, if you're feeling controlled by your spouse, right? Think about it. That could be abuse. You may want to talk to an immigration lawyer who is experienced in VAWA cases to determine if you qualify to file for VAWA. So talking about qualification for VAWA, how do you qualify for VAWA? What are the things you need to show? Well, number one, you have to prove that it's a bona fide marriage. I say this to all my potential clients that come for consultations. Number one, it has to be a bona fide marriage. You cannot get into a marriage for the purpose of for the sole purpose of getting a green card, and then when you're abused in that relationship, you want to file VAWA. It's not going to cut it. You need to prove it's a bona fide marriage. And what is a bona fide marriage? It means that when you got into the relationship, into the marriage, your plan was to be with this person, right? You wanted to build a home together. That was the intention, right? So it doesn't matter if the relationship doesn't work out somewhere down the line. USCIS always goes back to the original intent, and it's your burden of proof to show that your intention when you married the U.S. citizen or the green card holder, your intention was to have a good faith marriage. All right. So the next thing you have to show is you have to show abuse, right? And like I've said before, there are different types of abuse, because a lot of people think that abuse has to be physical and there has to be a police report involved. I've even had potential clients come into my office saying that a lawyer told them that they couldn't file VAWA because they didn't have a police report. That's not true. Okay, you do not need a police report to file VAWA, because you can still suffer abuse even if it's not physical. It could be financial, like I've talked about, interfering with your ability to make a living, or taking your money from you when you've worked. It could be, or asking you to buy unreasonable things, unreasonably expensive things, and tying it to them, filing your papers for you, right? It could be psychological, where they're smashing things, hiding your immigration documents, stopping you from talking to your family members, threatening to call ICE on you, threatening to call the police on you, threatening to harm your pets, refusing to let you talk to your parents or speak your language. It could also be verbal, calling you names, making fun of the way you speak, insulting you on social media. It could also be sexual, right? I don't think I talked about sexual abuse. Yes, men get sexually abused. Men get raped. Okay. So if you're in a relationship where you're being forced to have sex, or you're being forced to do things you don't want to do, right, sexually, that is abuse, right? And that could qualify you to file a VAWA petition, right? Do you have a spouse who is, not allowing you to get involved in things, things that involve the family, like you want to have kids, you've agreed to have children, and you're trying to have kids, and without you knowing they're on some kind of birth control that stops them from having kids, and they haven't discussed it with you, because you're there going to a fertility specialist trying to figure out why you guys are not getting pregnant, only to find out later on that she was secretly not, purposely not getting pregnant, right? Maybe, as a way of, making you feel bad about yourself, right? So it depends. So the thing about abuse is that sometimes it's not obvious, um, it could be construed a different way. But if you listen to a story and you see the pattern of certain behavior, you realize that even sometimes the most harmless act could be a form of abuse, right? Abuse could be emotional too, right? When your spouse is cheating on you, and just to make you feel bad about yourself. Now remember, cheating on itself is not abusive. That's what USCIS says, but it depends on the way it's done, right? And like I said, it could also be physical abuse, pushing, shoving, breaking things, putting you in harm's way, such as maybe dropping you off in the middle of nowhere, knowing that you can't get back home. So these are the ways that immigrant men suffer abuse, right? And the important thing for you to know is that you don't have to depend on an abusive spouse to get your green card. You do not. You have the power. You just need to take the first step to get that power and live your life. You'll get your work permit. You'll get your travel permit. You can travel, see your family members, and then ultimately you'll get your green card, right? All by yourself without involving them. So I hope this information is useful to somebody out there. And if it's useful to you, please subscribe to my channel. I have a channel, a YouTube channel, Facebook, Instagram, and please feel free to share this information because you may save somebody's life, okay? Abuse is nothing to sneeze at. People die because of domestic abuse. So it's important that if you know somebody who's going through domestic abuse, that you reach out to give them information that can assist them, okay? So that's it for today. I just wanted to talk about VAWA and the undocumented man. And I'm going to talk about VAWA in another context in the next couple of days. I have an ebook coming up on VAWA and the undocumented man. So feel free to click on my website when it comes out and get more information. And until then, it's adios. I'll be here again, hopefully maybe tomorrow, maybe Monday. Okay, take care. Bye.